Well, Solo's theory is the fundamental theory of economic growth, and its central truth, I think, has stood the test of time, which is that in the long run, economic growth depends on technical progress. And I think before that, people thought economic growth depended on investment or savings or things like that. So this was really, our prosperity comes from innovation in the long run. So the convergence story is, as you say, has not fared quite so well in the world. And some of that, I think, is because the new information that comes with innovations is not always fully adaptable from elsewhere. So, a new innovation that depends on having an educated workforce may work fine in the United States, but it wouldn't work in Zambia, for instance, or something like that. But there's a sense in which it's partly true in that if you look at what's happened in India and China, where there's an enormous amount of catch-up growth gone on, which is precisely the Solo type of, evening out living standard. And India and China's per capita GDP is only a fifth of the United States. But it's growing very rapidly, and India's been growing very rapidly too. So the living standards, if we talk about people as opposed to countries, some countries have managed to get into that catch-up growth, and when they have, it's had amazing effects, and it's pretty much the way that Solo was talked about. I mean, Solo's model is a very simple, stripped-down model, and it's not going to explain all the facts of the model. Well, I never quite understood what it was, and I'm not quite sure what the end of history. I mean, it's sort of like the clock stopped, nothing happens from now on. But I don't think that anyone who's lived through the last 30 years since that was promulgated would say that, what happening in China is not historic, what's happening in India is not historic, the changing balance of power, Russia is still a very dangerous place, there's there's a lot happening, and I think it matters. And I don't think historians, when they write the history of the 21st century, will say nothing happened in the 21st century because it all happened in the 20th. So, mind you, one could certainly hope that he's right about some of the events that happened in the 20th century. We could do without any more world wars or great leap forwards or things like that. I'm not sure I'm not sure you mean quotes, meaning prices.
Prices, yes. Prices.
So I'm not sure the theory that there is long-term decline in raw materials prices is actually true in the first place. So that these raw material prices are so variable that, if you look at it over 100 years, it's sort of going like this, So you can pick 2 points where they look like they're declining, and you pick 2 points where they look like they're increasing, and you can get sort of any luck you like. But there is an important point here. These things are very volatile, as the finance minister was talking about over lunch. I mean, the oil price goes down, and then you're in all sorts of trouble because lots of domestic things depend on that. So it's clear that being primarily dependent on primary commodities poses all sorts of macroeconomic challenges. And so, everybody said it for a very, very long time that diversification is really important. So, for instance, if the peace process produces much more tourism, for instance, much more foreign direct investment, those would help diminish your dependence on oil and coffee prices. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the best things that happened to me in life were when I did what I thought was interesting, irrespective of whether other people thought it was interesting or not. And that's why I think it's very important, and I think students in business schools are a bit prone to do this, is to overplan their lives, you know. So you don't have to do what people say you're going to do, you know, and you should follow your nose a bit. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that you don't want to learn stuff that's to be there to be learned. And also that Columbia clearly has lots of interesting things to work on. So, you know, whether it's in business or whether it's in academia or whatever. And so I think they should be delighted with the opportunities that are facing them.